And I'm Guy, and this is your home for everything Alberta independence. Let's get into it, Nat.
Before we start, thank you so much for joining us today. Please don't forget to subscribe because, again, it is what helps us out the most and it's free. Also, we try to read most, if not all, of your comments live after each segment. The show is divided by segments. However, we do pause whatever we're doing if we get any super chats, and those help us out a lot as well. And also, we have memberships. Thank you so much to all our members once again.
And I will say, when we get into Alberta and the world, there is a ton of more news breaking out of Spain. We'll save it for the end today. I kind of front-loaded it a little bit yesterday. Okay, now we can get in.
Bug flew into me. First of all, hello to Anya Zinski. Thanks so much for being here. It says happy Friday, and happy Friday to you and to everybody else. Nat and Guy and all my fellow chat family. Thank you, and says watching from Edmonton, Alberta. Let us know if it's sunny, rainy, or what the temperature is. And Mary Wall, hello Mary, says watching from Vauxhall, Alberta.
Yeah, and it's just absolutely lovely to see everybody chatting all the time amongst one another. I remember when we used to do the show and we had literally one viewer and we weren't getting any comments. Then we had another viewer come in that would give comments. So that was the start of a long road there, I guess.
So thank you so much for being here. And we are still here. So.
Yeah.
Goes of a chance says Fauci will never pay for his crimes against humanity. Well, maybe he'll pay in the afterlife.
Yeah, there's good news coming out about Trudeau, though. So hopefully they can hold Trudeau accountable. He's just going around the world drinking up a storm, having a great little time with his pop star wife. There needs to be some accountability on him and some other Canadian politicians. They don't just get to walk.
It's a girlfriend, not even a wife. What old man has
not his wife, his girlfriend.
But on that note, let's actually get into... Oh, no, hold on. Sanjali says, hello, Nat and Guy. Hello. And Kempanjali says, happy long weekend. Oh, it's a long weekend over there. Not here, but enjoy your long weekend if so. And now let's get...
Actually, I will say something before we get started. I think next Tuesday we're going to premiere a little bit of American news. The midterms are coming up. They're just a couple months away. Hopefully we can help the people down in the States so J.D. Vance can win in 2028. I think we're going to need a president that will recognize Alberta as an independent country. So he's the best chance I think we have. I think we really need to go hard in the midterms there as well. Still, we're going to have 5 days a week of Alberta independence. We just want to focus in a little bit on what's happening in the U.S. because it will impact Alberta independence going forward, especially for the binding referendum, I think.
Yes, and if you don't know, our origins are actually talking more on the geopolitical front. So we'll kind of go back to that a little bit for one day. But now let's go to breaking news.
Extra, extra, read all about it. Extra, extra, read all about it.
And let's start with this from Rebel News. Saying, quote, Alberta fact check. Forever Canadian Chair Thomas Lukaszuk, we keep talking about, claims Alberta's requirement to hand count referendum ballots means Elections Alberta has been, quote unquote, set up for failure. The evidence doesn't support that conclusion.
Yeah, and what he wants here is he wants to bring in machine balloting, which obviously would be corrupt. I think we need to push back hard against that. If they fail here, they may try to bring in machine balloting for the binding referendum. Why don't we click into the article, read a little bit? We'll kind of experience it together. I haven't read the whole article. I did see the Unacceptable Fringes video earlier today, and he went in depth on this. It was pretty good. If you haven't checked it out, I highly recommend it. I think Lukaszuk knows he's in trouble here, and that's why he's starting to try to build the framework of how the independent side is going to steal it. We're the one showing our work, showing where the money's coming from. We've been completely transparent and above board the entire time.
Mm-hmm. This is as best as I can get it, but it says, again, Alberta fact check, no manual ballot counting does not mean Alberta's referendum is set up for failure. But I'll read it. Forever Canadian Chair Thomas Lukaszuk claims Alberta's requirement to hand count referendum ballots means Elections Alberta has been quote-unquote set up for failure. The evidence doesn't support that conclusion. Lukaszuk argues that manually counting ballots across Alberta will create major problems when referendum votes are counted this October. That prediction overlooks one important fact. Alberta has already conducted elections using manual ballot counting or manual ballot counts. And we've also seen and even encouraged people and engaged citizens that do want to see this go through to volunteer for when the non-binding referendum election and counting does come up. That way we have some people on the inside.
Well, I've recommended we really need to volunteer for these roles. These are actually paid roles, so they're not volunteer. You will get paid for your work. They need 60,000 workers. There are Elections Alberta is claiming they're going to have a struggle getting those 60,000 workers. It could take a few days to count. We want to fill those roles so we can count within 24 hours, and we want the independence question counted first. We don't want any funny business here. The fact that they have 10 separate ballots going into 10 separate boxes could really mean for some funny business here, not just election machines. I mean, there could be setting up things in a multitude of ways. We don't want to just have poll watchers. We want to have people counting the ballots on the ground.
And it continues. Most recently, Alberta municipalities were required to return to hand counting paper ballots after the province prohibited electronic vote tabulators, because we've seen examples of when those can be used to do shenanigans and funny business. Municipalities warned the process would require more workers, more time, and higher costs, but the elections proceeded and official results were produced. Hand counting was unquestionably more labor intensive, but it did not produce the widespread electoral breakdown the Kazakh now predicts.
Well, yeah, I like hand counting. Why? Because the ballots are ultimately going to be there and preserved. When you hack a voting machine, you don't know what's actually going on there, and it's a lot harder to trace. There's a lot of funny business going on in the United States right now. They're uncovering what happened in 2020. Hopefully that process keeps going on. But until then, we want hand ballots. I'm even against mail-in balloting. I really don't want mail-in balloting. I know there's going to be some in this election. Hopefully there's not too many.
Because once again, we've seen how they can use those kinds of mechanisms to actually influence, I will say, elections, both in Canada and the US. Again, there's countless examples now.
Yeah, absolutely. And I will say some other things. I like how Trump in the United States is bringing up what happened in the 2020 election. This is putting a lot of scrutiny on other countries to look into their elections and make sure they have things like hand counting, which is going on here. Also, what happened during the jibby jab era, that's coming back up with what happened to Fauci. That's how helping independence as well. And the final thing that's been coming up is in Spain, and Trump is pointing this out as well. Everything he seems to be pointing out in the stances that he has taken is ultimately going to help Alberta independence as well, because it's bringing it in to the news cycle on an international level. And a lot of people in Alberta do watch international news.
But now let's get back to your comments before we head into Alberta Stay Free. And Yazinski says, yes, go JD. We need a strong U.S. administration. And again, when there's, for the whole continent, when there's a strong, with the most powerful country, at least in this continent and throughout the whole world, has a strong administration, well, then it only benefits the rest of the continent.
Well, and it's a little sad to see how everybody's trying to abandon and turn on Trump. We have Alex Jones talking about impeachment as well as a lot of other conservatives, especially content creators, taking money, and they have completely flipped the script. What do you want here? Yeah, I disagree with the war that they're involved in too, but there's a lot of other things that are happening domestically. You, are not going to vote for the Republicans or for Trump, and lead way to the Democrats, who are going to make up for lost time and absolutely flood the border. What we've seen in Spain would be nothing compared to what would happen in the United States. And what happens in the United States, a lot of those refugees make their way up to Canada as well as what did we see during the jibby jab era? Yeah, he was all for Project Warp Speed, but he offered freedom for what people wanted. Did they want to get it? Did they not want to get it? He's also sided with free speech. So overall, you might not like one or two things that are happening, but I like the general direction he's going, especially on a broader level, on a world context.
Yes, and you can't be that narrow-minded. But Eddie Rodriguez says, good evening, everyone. Good evening, and thank you for being here. Sanjali says, go JD. Yes, quickly. And Philip Espa says, Tommy the Commie just admitted that voting machines are rigged for one side by his statements. All future elections need to be conducted using no machine, same day in-person voting without mail-in.
Yeah, and I agree with no mail-in. And once we are an independent country of Alberta, you're going to have to make your way back to Alberta on a plane if you want to vote in any formal elections, I say. And we need to kind of set that example for other countries.
Mm-hmm. And again, that isn't a novelty either. Many, many other countries also just let you vote in person. Otherwise, you have to give some sort of excuse or be able to show why you did not vote.
Yeah, exactly.
A lot of Latin American countries. But now let's get into Alberta Stay Free. Right.
Sweet home Alberta, where the roots run deep and the money trees grow.
And let's start with PP, who once again is good at talking, not so much at the action, but he's good at noticing what's going wrong. Pierre Poilievre says, young Canadians feel like they have to leave Canada to find opportunity they were promised here. count me as one. This should be the best country on earth to start a family, buy a home, and launch a business. Let's reverse the decade of liberal taxes, inflation, debt, and bureaucracy so Canadians can build their future at home. Interestingly, he didn't add immigration in there.
An absolutely fantastic statement by Pierre Poilievre. This was originally brought to my attention by the Unacceptable Fringes X account as well. He's basically stumping for Alberta because what are we going to wait 3 years? Canada's going to be totally collapsed and these things are going to be out of reach. These things are in reach now if we vote for independence and really pressure for a timely binding referendum so we can actually get these things for ourselves, our children, and our grandchildren, I think.
And interestingly, I have been looking into these statistics. It says last year, a record-setting 120,000 Canadians moved out of the country, with 50%, it was actually higher, of them being between the ages of 25 and 45. And again, around 470,000 Canadians have left since 2023. So
yeah, and I also have to make some corrections because I watch a lot of conservative content creators and they're buying up these numbers that Mark Carney is giving out, how he's lowering PR numbers, how he's lowering student numbers, how he's lowering asylum seekers. Yes, he is lowering those things, but only slightly, and he's letting in a massive new group of refugees, over 2 million. I'm seeing a lot of conservative content creators not aware of this fact, and what they're saying is Mark Carney's let over 1 million immigrants over the last couple of years. No, he's let 2 million refugees into the country alone this year.
Next. Rise of Alberta says, quote, Mark Carney came to Red Deer. Alberta independent supporters made sure he didn't leave without seeing the flags.
Yeah, and this is absolutely fantastic. Sending a message to the Prime Minister. He's not welcome in Alberta, and we need to send that message to him. I didn't see any Canadian flags out there. I didn't see anybody welcoming him. My social media is absolutely covered with Alberta content creators, and the day he came in, it was multiple Alberta independence protesters on the side of the road raising up the Alberta flag, which was fantastic to see.
Mm-hmm. And again, it's insane that there are still people with a forever Canadian ilk and crowd that get triggered when they see their own provincial flag. If they really don't like it that much, then move.
Yeah.
You move. You leave if you don't like to even see, and you get triggered by seeing the flag. As we talked about yesterday with people in grocery stores complaining that the section that sells Alberta-specific things had a flag above it, which is the provincial flag. But next, Farm Geek or Tanya Clemens says, quote, Alberta has spent decades asking for a better deal. We've elected different governments. We've proposed reforms. We've fought for pipelines. We've challenged federal policies. We've asked Ottawa to listen. Many Albertans feel the results haven't matched the effort. On October 19, you're not being asked to make Alberta independent. You're being asked whether Alberta should negotiate its future from a position of greater strength. A vote for option 1 accepts the status quo. A vote for option 2 tells Ottawa that Albertans expect serious negotiations and are prepared to consider every option if meaningful change cannot be achieved. That is why I support option 2, not because it decides Alberta's future, because it gives Alberta the strongest possible voice before the future is decided for you. No successful negotiator voluntarily weakens their own position before sitting down at the table. Why should Alberta? Whatever your view, I encourage you to read the actual referendum question and decide for yourself what each option really means. On October 19th, I'm voting to strengthen Alberta's hand. I'm voting option 2.
Yeah, and I love Keith Wilson and Tanya Clemens. They're taking a much more moderate approach, appealing to the middle. I don't have the same approach. I'm very much on the Alberta independence side, and I do want to say go a step further. Even if you don't support independence, we need to vote option 2 to send a message to Ottawa. But number 2, what we need to do after October 19th, we need to figure out how to replace Danielle Smith and who we're going to replace her with. There's chatters of Maxime Bernier now running. There's a lot of other good candidates there. We need people that are not going to negotiate with the federal government and secretly give away Alberta's sovereignty and their economic sovereignty away through MOUs and other contracts and try to sell it as they're gaining freedom and autonomy. No, she's doing the absolute opposite. We want somebody that's actually going to fight for sovereignty, very hard nosed, and force the federal government to take the other side of the stance and expose it to the general public in Alberta so people understand the federal government is not on our side.
And also not someone that has already set, very evidently so, their sights on Ottawa and a better future for herself in Danielle Smith, looking towards maybe gaining some ground within the Conservative Party, becoming the Conservative Party leader, maybe after ousting a crazy, ridiculous proposal of Jason Kenney, or even worse, Doug Ford. But we're seeing now, and we've seen through the statements, that not is she only aligning more with Mark Carney and with whatever he wants to do and say, but also trying to make moves to make herself even better in a more Canadian-wide scale.
Well, I would even say something.
Canada-wide.
I would even say something else here. I mean, this Jason Kinney, Doug Ford idea of they're going to oust Poilievre is just going horribly wrong. They've tried different advertising campaigns. They've tried to rally people behind the scenes. People aren't going to buy it. And even though I don't like Poilievre because he doesn't support independence, he's the best you're going to get for a Canadian leader. Yeah. That being said, they want him ousted, and they want somebody that's going to show their allegiance and really be part of this uniparty. And Danielle Smith may be that person. Maybe they're realizing right now Doug Ford and Jason Kinney just aren't cut out for the job of ousting Pierre Poilievre, and maybe they're going to start looking directly at Danielle Smith to make that move first. Now, right now, Danielle Smith has played buddy-buddy with everybody, including Mark Carney and the Liberal Party.
Which we initially were even praising. We were saying, oh, it's great that Danielle Smith is essentially staying in the middle lane and saying, well, I just want democracy to go through. But through more and more actions and things she's both said and done or impeded as well, it's become more clear that she has different options in mind for herself.
She's a federalist and she loves the Westminster system. This is obvious, especially with her statements on immigration. And those are just sad statements. The one she made the other day and the one she made a few months ago. And we're going to play those in just a little bit.
But also an update on something we continue to talk about because we think it's a great idea. And we're also waiting for this to come out. Keith Wilson, who again would be a great idea for a replacement for Danielle Smith, says, quote, the Alberta Transition Council is in the final stages of developing a serious practical white paper setting out the institutional, fiscal, and legal foundations for a smooth, orderly transition to a prosperous, independent Alberta. For everybody that continues to ask, well, how are you going to do this? We are now inviting qualified Albertans to serve as active reviewers of draft chapters within their areas of expertise. This is an opportunity to contribute your knowledge and experience to important work for Alberta's future. And if you want to participate, please email info@albertatransitioncouncil.com with your areas of interest, qualifications, and contact information, and reviewers may remain anonymous, or they can have their names associated with the final white papers with NDAs or non-disclosure agreements required.
And this is absolutely fantastic, and he's taken it to even another level here. He had experts in all these fields, not just on a Canadian level, but an international level to put this paper together, number one, but now he's going to get experts in the fields to review it. And a lot of those people are going to put their names on it, which gives the papers even more credibility. And what do we got on the other side? They have nothing. We also have the APP document that came out before and kind of outlined some financial numbers as well. This is a much more in-depth analysis with a lot more professionals. But on the other side, we have Danielle Smith talking about $400 billion. And then when she was asked about it again, well, maybe $300 billion. It was just a back of a napkin calculations. And she says she's doing the work now. She's putting it together now. Well, how do you have your calculations if you haven't even done the work here? Keith Wilson and his group were very good not to pre-release any numbers or not to even really talk about it. Say, we're getting experts together and we're going to have the best data available for Albertans. And one other thing these white papers are going to be great for is to start demanding Alberta's sovereignty again. There's going to be perhaps a year or more between the non-binding referendum and the binding referendum. We want a premier that is going to fight tooth and nail for Alberta's sovereignty and point out a lot of these statistics. Mm-hmm.
And again, the areas cover foreign affairs and trade, finance, currency, revenue, constitutional and legal order, public safety and defense, citizenship and immigration, indigenous relations and treaty framework, health and social continuity, economic resources and agriculture and infrastructure, communications and regulation. And I have been, because I have a bunch of videos planned that I want to do about kind of an explainer as the one I did on the passports and what would happen with passports. But I have been a little bit reticent in actually getting to filming them until this kind of all the information fully comes out. I will be probably coming up with some more Canadian and why Canada is not such a great place content while this finally comes up, because I do want to be in line with essentially what the hard work that has been done by Keith Wilson and the Alberta Transition Council to be on the same page.
Well, and I will say I might not be on the same page with him. I'm probably not going to agree with everything that's in there, but you have to give respect to the work that they're doing here, the experts that they have put together. This is really credible work and what you need to make that approach to the non-politically engaged individuals. Also, when we go into debates, when we go on the mainstream media and the mainstream media starts quoting Danielle Smith's 400 billion numbers with no work behind it, we will be able to quote these white papers that have not only been put together by experts, but have been reviewed by experts as well. We're the only side with statistics here. We're the only side that has done the work. We also have kept our head held high, even though they spit on us, thrown cigarettes at us, vandalized our businesses, and torn down our signs. We haven't done any of that.
And I mean more aligned, not in terms of opinion-based, but more aligned in terms of the numbers, for example. But next and lastly, also Keith Wilson says, quote, the West Coast pipeline should have been about opening markets for Alberta. Instead, Alberta is being asked to accept carbon costs, pathway costs, taxpayer debt, BC tolls, and BC royalties. That is not a win. That is the cost of staying under Ottawa's control. Vote option 2 because Alberta can do better. And we already kind of know that they can do better, that Alberta can do better because, for example, the US already essentially opened up another way to have multiple pipelines with trading just between Alberta and the US, and yet that still isn't being looked into by the federal government.
Yeah, and again, we really need to expose what's in these MOUs and these pipelines. No money may end up going to Alberta in the end. All the money may come off the top through carbon taxes and go directly to the federal government if this pipeline is run at cost or below cost, and the federal government may want to do that intentionally. Part of the reason of running it into Vancouver is because the pipeline can pump much less oil and distribute much less into shallow water tankers, which are much smaller there. If we can get a proper premier in there, we can try to cut out the federal government, these carbon taxes, and go with a direct deal with the United States and expose what's actually in these deals that Danielle Smith is trying to cut. The non-politically engaged think these are a good thing. Anybody that's read through the MOU knows she's trying to trade away Albertans' economic sovereignty and future.
Mm-hmm. And essentially retroactively also imposing taxes upon things that shouldn't even have them in the first place. But let's go back to your comments and then we'll head into Alberta politics to keep talking about all of this. Silverfeet says, hi all, hello, and thank you for being here. For the best, but says, I know I'm leaving if independence fails, and guess what? I won't miss your failure, Pierre. Finding success in a freer country is worth it.
Yeah, and I have hard arguing against people that want to leave Alberta. That being said, we already left. It worked out well for us. It worked out well for a lot of people that have moved to the United States as well. But Alberta has that critical mass of individuals now, and this is why we really need to push for the binding referendum in quick succession after the non-binding referendum before people say, well, no, that's too long. I can't wait the 2.5 years Danielle Smith is actually proposing here. And this is one of the reasons we may need a leadership, or we do need a leadership review on Danielle Smith. We need to make sure within 6 to 12 months we have that binding referendum. Whether we win or lose, we need to go ahead with Alberta and have an actual answer and a decision here.
Mm-hmm. Sanjali says, that is what I tell them. I'm a Métis woman and my ancestors built this land, and so they can leave or move east. The ones that complain about the Alberta provincial flag. And Sanjali also says, Todd Lowen is a UCP male for independence. Philip says, may be in the minority, but I don't think telling people to vote option 2 to send a message is a winning mentality. People who are against independence would just vote no in the fall anyway.
Yeah, I'm all for voting for option 2 because I want actual independence, but there's a lot of non-politically engaged people, or they're somewhat politically engaged, and they know Quebec's got a better deal time after time after time, and there is a lot of speaking tours going on right now explaining how Quebec has a lot of that leverage. And it seems like Alberta is getting a lot of leverage right now. The federal government, even though I don't like the deals, they're throwing pipelines at us. Investment is rolling in the form of $13 billion through Meta. I mean, since this independence conversation has come up, investment has rolled into the province. Mm-hmm. I mean, yeah, we can go on from there.
And I will also say, the thing is, I agree and I disagree. That's a weird thing, because if we can get at least people that are doubtful or would like to send a message but maybe haven't decided fully on independence, well, then it gives us the number needed to move forward in many different branches, all the way up to maybe a unilateral declaration of independence, if we have numbers saying this is kind of what more and more people want. So if by telling people that it'll help them send a message and not necessarily it's going to achieve independence, well, then at least you get more of a yes vote. And then you can maybe even use those numbers to further push faster a binding referendum, or the other option.
We have a few things to do here, and we really need to consider, we need to get the most votes as we can in this non-binding referendum. So people that are kind of on the fence, maybe that pushes them to the side. But right after this non-binding referendum, We're going to need a leadership review with Danielle Smith. This is going to be a big task. This is probably a bigger task than the non-binding referendum and maybe even the binding referendum. It's going to take a lot of planning and a lot of strategizing exactly how to do this and do this properly so we can get the right people in. But if we get the right person in that's going to light the fire under the federal government's feet and actually fight for really hard-nosed sovereigntist policies, it will expose the government leading up to that binding referendum. And we won't need as much money to promote a lot of the things because the mainstream media will be talking about these issues.
Hopefully so. Beulah Hillier, hello, says, watching from Innisfail, Alberta, it's another hot day here.
Oh,
Please
wow.
stay inside and drink water. Goes of a chance says, Jason Chameleon, or Kenny, and some guy Dung, or Doug Ford, couldn't conjure a conversation on conservative bone unless they are hiding the weenie.
Yeah, and that's the thing. I think Mark Carney's first choice would have been a Doug Ford or a Jason Kenney, but I think he's more than willing to take Danielle Smith at this point because he gave her the tap on the shoulder and she's doing everything in her power to show that she's basically a liberal and conservative clothing at this point, going against independence, signing the sovereignty of the province away through MOUs and a number of other things here.
Ken Pagelli says, pick whoever you want to replace Danielle except for Bernier. Except for Max.
I know a lot of people are against Bernier. I'm just saying we need to start strategizing now. We need to put everybody's hat in the ring, talk about what's the good things, what's the bad things, how are we going to do this, when's the time, and what do we have to do to actually do this? Because just buying UCP memberships isn't enough anymore. They are requiring tickets to their event where you're going to vote there. Are they going to hoard those tickets, not give them out to independent supporters and things like that? We need real strategies here, and we need a real strong candidate. Not any candidate is going to do. I'm not saying Maxime Bernier is the right person, but we do need a strong candidate. My preferred choice would be a Keith Wilson. I don't think he would be willing to do it, but if he was, I think he is acceptable to both national or federalist conservatives in Alberta as well as independent supporters. I know Jason Kenney even has a lot of respect for Keith Wilson, and that's saying a lot.
Well, he's the only one he was willing to debate. Philip Vespa says, I just think it's a weak form of messaging, the whole just vote option to send a message. Don't like putting myself in a position where I'm relying on swing voters to test the waters.
Yeah, I think it's a weak form of messaging too, and we're going to have a different form of messaging going into the binding referendum. The binding referendum's almost a year away. Overall, I like the strategy, and I like Keith Wilson as the leader of the independence movement unofficially. And I think a lot of people look at him like that, and this is the strategy he's taken, and I'm willing to stand behind that strategy. On this show particularly, I have much more hard-nosed messaging because that's the messaging I believe in, and that's just who I am. So that's what I'm going to preach. But I like what Keith Wilson is doing. I like what his organization is doing, and I think it will appeal to a lot of people. Maybe I don't have the ability to appeal to.
Yeah. Goes of a chance says, Ed Stelmach, Alison Redford, Rachel Notley, Jason Chameleon, Daniel Smith, birds of a feather.
Yeah.
Basically, John B says, I don't trust Danny Smith anymore, and says independence is going to happen for Alberta.
Absolutely.
And Laurie P says, Smith has been cooking something up with Carney. Does anyone find it suspicious that she has taken a lot of time to learn French?
Yeah, she is cooking up the destruction of Canada with Mark Carney at this point, and somebody has to sell it to the Conservatives, and I think they're looking at Danielle Smith as that individual. If she can kill this thing with the non-binding referendum or even leading into the binding referendum and extend it out to 2.5 or 3 years, which is absolutely ridiculous, they're going to want to put her to Ottawa, and I think she has eyes for Ottawa right now. She definitely has eyes for Mark Carney because it seems like every month she's doing a press conference with the guy, and she's praising him.
And John B, I agree, says, Albertans need to understand Canada is not in your best interests. Mm-hmm. No. It doesn't have your best interests at heart either.
Well, and it's obvious at this point. National Canadians just don't realize it because Conservatives are fleeing en masse. Mm-hmm. People have stuck it out in Alberta because Alberta does have the best economy in Canada. It could be a whole hell of a lot better, but it's just good enough where people didn't flee, and it's the most conservative province within Canada. That's the only reason we have this critical mass of individuals we need for this non-binding referendum.
And on that note, let's go to Alberta Politics.
He doesn't discuss federal politics. He only concerns himself with Alberta's independence.
And let's start with this from Jaden Xer saying, I have a question. Beef from 15,000 kilometers away is cheaper?
Well, yeah, and I think everybody knows this, and this is globalism and tariffs and taxes the Canadian government puts on its own farmers, which other countries don't, so they can transport the beef halfway around the world, and Alberta farmers can't compete with it. We need to get rid of these regulations, and in a free, independent Alberta, local beef will be the cheapest beef, period.
All right, someone make this make sense. I'm here at Loblaws looking at ground beef, and I have grass-fed ground beef from Australia and New Zealand that's less expensive than just regular conventional ground beef from Canada. From Australia, you can get it at $9.99 a pound. From New Zealand, it's $10.50 a pound. And for Canadian, just conventional ground beef, it's $11. It's just funny that they don't even put the prices on these packages anymore. Doesn't look on this funny angle when you're walking normally, you can't see the price. So it's only a $1 difference, which is not a big deal, but I'm just finding it kind of strange that the direction of the difference is in favor of beef coming from countries that are about 15,000 kilometers away from here. Fortunately, there are other options. I get my beef from a local Ontario farmer. It's organic, grass-fed, grass-finished, and it's only about less than 100 kilometers away. All right, someone make this.
And I will say there are a lot of local farms in Alberta, but they're being squeezed through onerous regulations. The government is not on their side, and this is one of the big reasons we need independence, so we can start putting Albertan farmers first, Albertan blue-collar workers first. So, I mean, we're trying to compete on a global level, not just with beef, but a lot of other things here. And it's our own government that is raising the price by putting onerous regulations on farmers, as well as the amount of jibby jabs these animals now have to get. It's absolutely out of control. We've reported on it multiple times now.
And that's what I was going to get into. The farthest away the meat comes from, well, the more things that might have happened to it, but also the less paper trail there will be about that cow and what happened to that cow, and you caring even about what happened to that cow, instead of, if we go back to caring about where our food comes from and to maybe even meeting the cow before we get to eat it, well, then that actually helps us, number one, stay healthier, because we know what doesn't go into the cow or whatever animal or plant you're consuming, but also consciously being conscious of what you're putting into yourself.
Yeah, there's no reason meat coming or any product coming from halfway around the world should be able to compete with the best beef in the world, and that's Alberta beef.
Oh, best. Because it was cheaper, at least in Ontario there. But next, the Globe and Mail says, quote, opinion, one person, one vote is basic democratic principle. We should try it sometime.
And you can click on this article. I'll just read a very little bit out of this. I think one of our viewers was talking about this article. I started reading it, and it's a little bit insane. They're talking about you should have to have a certain amount of money to vote.
Okay, it's going to have to look like this. Apologies. Toby Lutsko is a Canadian business legend, the CEO and co-founder of Shopify, an e-commerce outfit that in 2 decades has grown to be Canada's largest non-bank company with a market capitalization in excess of 200 billion, 6 billion users worldwide, and revenues of more than 16 billion annually. Mr. Lutsko himself is among Canada's richest people with a net worth of excess of 15 billion. He is also a first-class fool when it comes to matters other than making money. Not for nothing, he has been called Canada's Elon Musk, with a fraction of the wealth but the same penchant for issuing simplistic, intolerant, or otherwise dubious statement about politics and human affairs. Canada is, quote, very much veered into socialism under Trudeau. True. Donald Trump's demands in the 2025 Fenty tariff dispute were things that every Canadian wants its government to do, too. Yeah, true. Hold on, okay, no. But he did outdo himself this week in a couple of posts on X. What seems to have set him off were some posts from San Francisco showing photos of local residents, mostly elderly, opposed to a housing development, which Mr. Lutsko compared to the local opposition that this week led the federal government to shelve the proposed Billy Bishop Airport expansion in Toronto. Saying exactly what just happened in Toronto: retired, unemployed, unemployable, and useful idiots are the only people who go to these town hall sessions.
Okay, and you can kind of leave it there. I think it was the wrong article you grabbed, actually. There was another statement from the same gentleman, but we can leave it there. We can go into the next article.
That was the one you bookmarked.
We can go into the next article if you want.
Hold on, now I have to close things. Okay. Next, Mad says, quote, let's have an aggressive target to double our population, quote unquote. Danielle
And these
Smith.
next two clips are about Danielle Smith, mass immigration. Everybody sees what's going on in Spain. Everybody knows what she said yesterday with Mark Carney. She wants more immigrants. She's saying she's putting the 9 questions on the ballot because she doesn't want immigration, because that's what she was leaning to when she put the 9 questions on. But obviously that's not the case. She's looking for a mandate from the people for more mass immigration. And if she doesn't get it, she's going to play that same shell game Mark Carney is playing with refugees and other things. You have students, you have refugees, you have people with PR, and then you have asylum seekers. And they lower it in certain brackets, and then they massively raise it in the one nobody's looking at.
In her mind, she wants to flood Alberta with immigrants in hopes that Alberta wouldn't be, quote, a junior partner and have political clout. What she doesn't realize is that demographics is destiny. By doubling to 10 million, the priorities of Albertans in 2026 will change drastically with a population of 10 million in 2050.
And we can play the clip here, I think.
That's why I've said, let's have an aggressive target to double our population. I'm going to put this out there because I've said that in the throne speech. I want people to understand how important that is. We have to be that bastion of liberty, and people are going to want to come here, and we want to embrace them, and we want to be able to build this place out so that we can actually have the political clout in Alberta that we deserve. Because right now, we're being treated as a junior partner by Ottawa, and if we end up with the strongest economy, we'll double our oil production.
You want to go from rough numbers, you probably know the number better than me, 4.7 million, roughly?
We're almost at 5 million. We'll
Okay,
be at 5 million
so you
within
want
the
to
next 2
double
years.
it to 10 million?
Yeah, I do. That's why I've said, let's have an...
And the worst part is, I think it would be a valid statement, even a very conservative statement, if she was talking about incentivizing young couples, Canadian couples, Albertan couples, to have babies and double the population that way, and to create the conditions necessary for young people to actually want to have children and for those children to thrive alongside their parents in Alberta. However, that is not what she means. And there she says, oh, lots of people want to come here. No, you want people to be born there, not to come there, to be born. So, I mean, I agree there is a populational collapse going around all over the world. Canada is one of the most affected ones. Alberta less so from other provinces, but the solution isn't importing just random people to increase your GDP or have more political clout, but to actually create the conditions so your own people can and want to have those babies.
Yeah, we have to understand why she's doing this, and why she's doing it is she thinks it's going to give her more political power. And she may say, or she may indicate in an interview here or there, that she wants less immigration, but her broad stroke policies and what she's doing behind the scenes and the mechanisms she's building signal the other way that she wants mass immigration. She wants to get the population up to 10 million. This is why she's building massive amounts of hospitals, schools, and other things, so she can justify more immigrants. And then she can put it off on the federal government, saying, well, it's not me, it's the federal government that's putting them here. This is the same thing the EU politicians are doing. They've signed away their sovereignty when it comes to immigration to unelected bureaucrats, and the unelected bureaucrats are putting massive waves of immigrants, and the politicians are trying to play dumb, saying, well, I don't have any control over it. Yes, you do have control. And if you don't have control, we need to put somebody in that premier spot that will take control over the situation and say no more mass immigration, period.
Mm-hmm. And the reality is, I mean, incentivizing young people to have babies, well, babies take 19 years to become politically useful to you, while someone on PR or someone you import or someone that already is a citizen but lives somewhere else and also did the whole immigration journey, well, those are faster and work faster to achieve your goals as well.
Well, also, let's just say this. There was years and years of articles coming out from the mainstream propaganda media saying, oh, we need more workers. We need more workers. Well, no, we're seeing massive job lines, and there are not openings at these companies, and companies are retracting right now. A lot of them are investing in AI, robotics, and other things. So it's taking less workers to do the same amount of work. We don't need more immigration. We need less immigration. So every single Alberta citizen not only has a job, but a well-paying job, so one income can support a family, period. And that's what we want in a free and independent Alberta.
And so you're going to incentivize the young people to have the little babies. Okay. Next, Mad Matt also says Danielle Smith wants to be able to, quote, scale up from current immigration levels. She laments that Alberta only has 6,400 permanent residency spaces against 40,000 applicants. She then states that she wants the ability to scale up to Quebec numbers, which stand at 45,000 PRs. She's going to H-1B Albertans.
And I know we played this clip yesterday, and this is her most recent clip talking about immigration, and she's trying to soft sell it, not talking about mass immigration, but this is mass immigration, and she wants to up the numbers and she wants to get people used to it so she can keep expanding these numbers, giving her more political power. The last statement we seen from her was a little bit older of a statement, but I think that was a much more honest statement because that's when she wasn't getting as much pushback from the citizens. Now that she's getting pushback, she has the same policy. She's just trying to pitch it a little bit differently here.
To offer them permanent residency. At the moment, we only have 6,400 spots. I think we've got 40,000 people who have sought permanent residency from us, and so that's why I think we need a bit of a better balance. Quebec is able to choose about 45,000 of their permanent residents through a different program, and so if you're looking at the scale, we think that we need to be able to have more autonomy to do that, and then that would allow us to address some of the pressures that we're hearing about in the news, and also make sure that those who go through those programs with a hope of getting permanent residency, as long as we can identify a pathway where there's a job that is one that cannot be filled by an Alberta worker, then I think that we can work with the federal government to find more opportunities for us to make those choices. To offer them
Oh, God.
residence.
And Mark Carney's in the back, just nodding his head, loving it, going like that with his hand. And she's signing away Albertan jobs. What are they doing? They're making sure anybody from any province can work interprovincially without having to be directly hired in from a company from Alberta or elsewhere. What does this do? This is going to take a lot of those jobs away from the oil workers. I even think they're going to pre-train a lot of the mass immigrants coming into the country. And that's how they're going to fill these jobs. And because the federal government is the main investor, repressing wages will build more of a profit margin for the federal government to take.
But now let's go back to your comments before we head into Alberta Personalities. Todd says, hey there, folks. Hello, Todd. Thank you for being here. And Yazinski says, would this have been her plan all along? I mean, maybe, and we do continue to see statements that essentially contradict what a lot of people thought she was espousing or thought that she wanted to implement. And that is why a lot of people are saying, well, where is the Danielle Smith that we all thought we had and we had voted in, and who is this person? But if we go back to those two statements, like the one we just saw, not the last one, but the one before that one, well, there she is saying she wants to increase the numbers and that it's also not fair that Alberta doesn't get as many immigrants as she'd like. Again, she could make a very similar point by saying, I want to be able to create the conditions for young people to reproduce. But that is not what she is saying. And I think it's been going on for longer than I think we realize. And again, everybody, career politician or not, at the moment, eventually, if they do become career politicians, well, they will continue to seek only that power and privilege for themselves and forget about the promises they made to those that elected them.
Well, I think there's a more simple explanation here. And when she was looking out for the province first and putting the people of the province first, she was a much different Danielle Smith. It was the opposite stances that she had. Now I think she's got the tap on the shoulder and she has her eyes on Ottawa. And what they're telling her is, these are the policies you have to have if you want to work in Ottawa with us and you want to be the leader of the National Conservative Party. And they're testing her out now. They want to see her make that transition now, and they want to see if she can pitch it well. So if they bring her in, she'll be able to pitch it to national conservatives across the country to create a uniparty. And I'm not for it. We need somebody in there that's going to start fighting for Alberta's sovereignty, whether we get independence or we don't get independence, or even on the way to independence. We need somebody that's going to fight like hell for Albertans.
And Stephen Jansen, thank you so much for the $5 super chat, saying or announcing the Whistle Stop LTA has 30 4x8 signs. Contact Chris if you have a spot on the main highway to display. So if anybody is interested, and thank you so much, Stephen Jensen, and thank you for being here as well.
And we talked about that a little bit yesterday as well. They're looking for people that have space for these signs. So if you do, make sure you contact them at the Whistle Stop.
And Teresa Freedom, hello, says, we have the people here already. Make the unemployed rate 0. Then bring in immigrants if we need more. Or we'll wait until babies grow up.
There was a line for, I think, 5,000 jobs, and there was 50,000 applicants. This is absolutely insane. And a lot of the qualifications you need for this job are racial qualifications, which are ridiculous. And how do they bring these racial qualifications in? Through policies like DEI. It should be a meritocracy. The best candidate should be the one to get the job. That's the way it's always been. That's the way the West was built. That's how we were able to build a strong economy. Now we're dumbing down ourselves, our economies, and our workforce.
Ghost of a Chance says, Danielle has positioned herself into Harikiri, I don't know if I can say that on YouTube, an inch to the bowels every day. But she had me fooled for decades. And again, I think a lot of people are feeling that way. Maybe because she's been that way all along and she had further interests, or those interests came knocking on the door more recently.
Well, and she's had a ton of media training because she was in news before. So she knows how to pitch things.
John B says Keith Wilson needs to step up to the plate. It'd be lovely, but
Yeah, Keith Wilson
can't
would
rush.
by far be the best candidate to oust Danielle Smith with. I say it on a regular basis. Now, I don't know if he's willing to do it. That's why we have to game plan what candidates can do it, which ones appeal. And we don't just need one candidate. We need to start placing candidates all around Alberta, not just in the main leadership role, but in all the sub roles too, because we need a entire province of politicians that are going to fight like hell for Albertan citizens, not just one or two.
Philip Espa says the problem is that Alberta's leverage comes from actually leaving, not just threatening to leave like Quebec. Otherwise, we are just agreeing with Danielle. I like Jeff Rath as a leader.
Yeah, I like Jeff Rath as well. The issue we're going to have there is he can be really polarizing. So I don't know, especially for the first referendum and a binding referendum or a non-binding referendum. I don't know if he's the best choice, but I like what he's done. I like what Mitch Sylvester has done behind the scenes as well. But I just think Keith Wilson is that moderate voice people from on both sides can vote for. Even if they disagree with him on some things, they can see him as a good leader, and they know, I think he's not going to be too radical in his opinions or his approaches.
Blue Sky Gladu says, hello from Edmonton, Alberta. Independence is the only way forward.
Yeah.
If you really want things changed, then yes. Ghost of a Chance says, Danielle is toast, fool me once, shame on me. Yeah, literally. And John B says Alberta grows its own beef. Yes. Ghost of a Chance says Alberta grows spineless politicians. At this point, apparently there's many coming out and many that don't want to be politicians but would be great politicians.
Yeah, and the great thing about Alberta is not afraid to get rid of their politicians. And the Canadian government seems to think, oh, we'll just replace it. We'll just keep replacing Jason Kenney with Danielle Smith and then this one, and eventually they'll stop. We'll call them radicals for replacing our politicians. No, the politicians are corrupt. As soon as they show their corruption, we're going to oust them, and we're going to keep ousting them until we get a politician that's willing to fight for the people themselves. That's why the Alberta independence movement is a grassroots citizen-led movement, because we don't really trust politicians overall, but in the greater outlook, we want to try to get a politician in there that will fight for a binding referendum at all costs.
Mm-hmm. And hold on, because over on RUMBLE, I see a Rumble rant from Christu. Thank you so much for the $10 Rumble rant. Says, Danielle proved me right once again for the traitor person she is. I would say a lady of the night that she is. That's how I have to say it. But strong words and obvious sentiment and felt. Holden, that's how I'm going to read it as well, says, Danny is a fake fraud and a floor crosser. She will flock to where she thinks the power is, promises made but never kept. And again, once you get that taste of power and that taste of being a career politician, well, then it seems, number one, much easier, but also more tempting to continue to go down the path that many have also already gone through.
Well, and I'm glad to hear the sentiment. I mean, when I used to bring this up every episode, I would see numbers, just everybody would drop out of the room if I brought up anything negative about Danielle Smith or we needed to oust her. I used to be on her side, but I woke up fairly early on. I started recognizing she's going to be a major problem. As soon as she said it was going to be 2.5 years to a binding referendum, that was the red line for me. The day she made that statement, I said, no, that's it. We need a new leader. But it took a while for people to come around. I'm glad they're starting to come around, because this is going to be a major thing in order to replace Danielle Smith here. I think it's going to be harder than the non-binding referendum, matter of fact.
And last one before we head into Alberta Personalities, Philip Espa says, makes sense that the Conservatives haven't won in a long time. If they had a spine for the government, would be playing defense every day.
Yeah, exactly. Alberta independence and multiple independence movements would have the Liberal federal government on their back feet. Instead, they're all holding hands singing Kumbaya.
On that note, let's go to Alberta Personalities.
But they need to understand that Albertans are done, we're leaving, and there's no more conversation to be had. I know that's upsetting to people.
I don't sing Kumbaya. Speaking of Kumbaya, though, Ryan Gertison says, quote, when the leader of the Alberta NDP, Naheed Nenshi, was asked about those who were angry at the restaurants who implemented the jibby-jab passport, he says, thank you, we didn't want you anyway. He then insinuates all unjabbed people are drunk and belligerent. Never forget how horrible these individuals are.
Yeah, and with the Fauci diaries and all this stuff coming back up to the surface, I just wanted to bring up an older clip from Nenshi so we don't let him live it down. I know he's not the most popular, but he's going to be looking in for an in, especially if we try to challenge Danielle Smith. He's going to say, they're weak right now, maybe I can thread the needle. But let's not forget what he said.
Well, start by saying thank you for boycotting a place you're not allowed to go to because we didn't want you anyway. The actual thing about this is that most people, the vast majority of people actually say, you know what, I'm more likely to go to a restaurant if I know the person at the table next to me is vaccinated. And so I'm encouraging everyone who is vaccinated, now you can feel a little bit safer. Now you should feel like you can support these local businesses. And frankly, if there's going to be less drunken Yahoo belligerent people yelling at you about conspiracy theories, it'll be even a nicer night out, won't it? Well, start by saying thank you.
Well, I'm unjabbed and I've been sober for 10 years.
Well,
I do get belligerent sometimes, though.
It needed to be a choice. If they wanted to do vaccine passports or jibby-jab passports in a lot of these restaurants, each individual business should have been able to make that choice for themselves, period. I know in British Columbia, it was across the board. You had to do it or you were shut down.
Exactly. But next, great personality. Jason Levine says, quote, debate challenge. Pierre Poilievre has appointed Parkland MP Dane Lloyd to lead the Conservative Party's pro-Canadian unity campaign ahead of Alberta's referendum.
And this was the gentleman, and I'm glad John Bolton made a video about it, how he had a Canadian flag that had obviously been there for a long time, and then he had an Alberta flag with a bunch of creases in it. I mean, the flag I just got doesn't have as many creases as the one that he had behind him. It's obvious they just went to the store, unwrapped it. He made a video about how we need unity in Alberta. But he's a fake politician, and I would love to see this debate between Jason Levine. I'm glad Jason Levine is putting out this challenge to him. Somebody needs to take him on head on, and if he's not willing to meet the challenge, like a lot of other forever Canadians or people on the unity side, they know they don't have much to say.
Let me finish reading it. So yes, he's been appointed head of Alberta's referendum. That makes Mr. Lloyd the most appropriate person to publicly present and defend the Canadian unity position. I support Alberta independence, and I'm the author of Oh Canada, What Have You Done?, which examines Alberta's relationship with Ottawa and the case for sovereignty. Albertans deserve to hear these two competing visions tested through a respectful, fact-based public debate with equal time and a neutral moderator. No slogans, no personal attacks, just the economic, constitutional, and political facts. Want to debate the facts, Mr. Lloyd? Says Jason Levine.
And again, these Forever Canada people or the Federalist side do not like to be in these debates. Even though I don't like Jason Kenney, I could appreciate he at least went in the debate against Keith Wilson. That being said, if they're not going to come for these debates, we need to make public challenges and publicly shame them to let the general public know they don't have Alberta's best interest at heart. They're just taking a federal line, and they can't even really defend that line.
Because again, they know deep down that there are way better arguments to leave Canada because in a lot of cases, and especially for Conservatives, their own alleged principles and values align way more with Alberta and independence and sovereignty and freedom than they do with the current federal plan for Canada of intentional destruction, I would call it. So you can put them between a rock and a hard place very easily by saying, well, you say all these things and complain about all these things in Canada, and you notice what's happening, and you were trying to do something about it, although you don't have now you don't even have an opportunity with the majority that you allowed and helped Carney create. But Alberta independence is essentially doing everything you say you want to do in 3 years if we vote hard enough for you.
Yeah, basically a lot of these politicians, it's kind of like the article we had in the very beginning of the show with Pierre Poilievre. He sounded like he was pitching Alberta independence, complaining about everything that's wrong in Canada. But when they get in a debate with somebody from Alberta independence, what we're offering is real change in a timely manner. The Conservatives had their opportunity for well over 100 years, and they're a part of the reason we're in the situation we're in now. They're not real conservatives. They keep liberalizing themselves a little bit at a time, salami slice by salami slice.
I want salami. I'm hungry. I haven't eaten today. And last, I don't know if you wanted me to put this one in, but Charles Curran says this is a satire. Ro Khanna and Adam Schiff want to make illegal, so Democrats aren't the butt of the behinds of jokes.
This was a pretty hilarious little meme. I'll actually play the whole thing. It's rather long. That being said, the main thing you're seeing from liberals on a global basis are we are the defenders of democracy, 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 but they never want to talk what democracy is. And their idea of democracy is some distorted version of communism. And that's why there's so many communists infiltrating Democratic and liberal caucuses around the world. And it's absolutely ridiculous. They call themselves the defender of the democracy when they actually want communism and socialism. Let's check it out.
You really think I'm a dark horse? Presidential candidate? I know you're a dark horse. Presidential candidate. But what if they make fun of me with AI? I'd never let that happen. Yeah, that's a threat to democracy.
Make way, make way. We're here to save democracy.
Oh my God, I'm so sorry.
It's a threat to democracy, not to have that monster on a leash.
Sorry.
You okay, baby? Yeah, I'm okay. Then let's go save democracy.
I'm not going to sugarcoat it. AI that makes fun of me is a threat to democracy.
You do know satire is the bedrock of the American political tradition, going back as far as Benjamin Franklin. And protected free speech, right?
That's no way to talk to a dark horse presidential candidate. If it upsets me, that's a threat to democracy.
Now put me down. Put me down.
Okay, and you can leave it there. And this was a fantastic use of AI, and the way they used satire there was fantastic. There's no reason we can't do something exactly like that against the federal government itself.
And they, number one, use those points a lot. And number two, in Canada, they now might actually have and give themselves more and more power to actually censor things like satire, which is what they wanted to do under the guise of hate speech, which just means hate speech, speech that offends me. Hate speech doesn't exist.
Yeah, I mean, that was absolutely magnificent the way they threaded the humor through there. And it was a bit of a darker humor as well. We need something like that in Alberta independence. It doesn't always have to be a song about Alberta independence. We can do something that's a straight attack to the federal government. And I think that's what we need now.
But now let's go back to your comments and then into Alberta's Canada. Yvette DeVoe, hello, says, can we please just take care of our own before we start taking in strays? Or make more of our own?
Well, let me say something. I have been thinking about this for a long time, and this is the main reason I'm against mass immigration. We need to learn to make a roadmap and show other places how it's done. So whether it's the United States or Alberta or countries, when a country is successful, other countries can look at it and say, well, how were they successful without immigration? Or how were they successful and what was the roadmap so other people can follow it? But when you have all these Western countries embracing these globalist values all going down at the same time, there is no example of somebody taking another route. Donald Trump is trying to do it now, which I appreciate. So finally, we're having this split so countries can see, oh, this is working and this isn't working. Conservative values are working. Globalist, liberal, progressive values aren't working. They're destroying countries.
And I wouldn't even say, not even say strays, but invaders at this point. I mean, we're seeing it in Ceuta in Spain. We're seeing it in Melilla, also in Spain. But just in general, you're also seeing it in Canada.
Well, this is the big reason Alberta independence, and when it gets its independence, is such a threat to Canada, because we've been conservative for the last 93 years, and we're going to have a bedrock of conservative values, and it's going to be hold up a mirror to Canada on all the bad decisions they make, and Canadians are going to wake up en masse at that point.
And it could also be very easy, just like the US did under Trump, to show how easy it is to stop the slow drip feed of immigration into Western countries. But back to your comments, Goes of a Chance says the conservatives have never been conservative, thus the toilet swirl we find ourselves in. Or they forgot a very, very long time ago about what it actually meant.
Well, and it's not even that they weren't conservative. They were scared of real conservatism. They went after and attacked Donald Trump behind the scenes. Pierre Poilievre didn't want anything to do with it. And if he would have taken the opposite stance from Carney in the beginning, yes, it may hurt him in the polls a little bit in the short term, but now people would have been looking to him saying, oh, he had the right idea, because Mexico had the same idea, and the countries that took the other path are the ones that got good trade deals. But nobody in Canada took an opposite path. I mean, Alberta citizens want another path. We want a zero tariff relationship with the United States. But it seems like conservatives, liberals, everybody in Canada got their elbows up. They're yelling unity, and we're standing together against the orange man because he's so bad and scary.
Vespa says, sending prayers of justice for the residents of Ceuta, and may Daniel's immigration plans never come to pass. She wants to turn Alberta liberal red.
Well, yeah, sorry, I forgot to say this earlier. With Danielle Smith's old statement on immigration and now her new statement kind of reaffirming that, we need to answer all 9 questions, and we need to make it very, very obvious to her. We want no immigration at this point. We want to make sure every Alberta citizen has a well-paying job.
And that shouldn't be a new or controversial concept even. John B says, agreed, Nat, more kids being born in Alberta, but I don't like Danny's scenario. No. And Gosova Chan says, grow some freaking stones for once.
Yeah.
That's pretty hard, apparently. And Gosova Chan also says that AGM can't come fast enough. Nope.
And they're going to be changing rules and the way tickets are distributed and everything else. So we need to be prepared for every situation leading up to that thing.
Hello Norma, says, have you seen who is managing the new AISH program? It's not even Canadians, let alone Albertans. Just like they wanted. Again, it's very planned, meticulously planned, I will say.
Well, and Mark Carney bringing Democrats from Hillary Clinton's administration to work in the PM's office.
Norma says, bye Danny, maybe it's Brookfield. DeBilver says, hi all from Calgary, Alberta, free. Hello, thank you for being here. And Philip Vespa says, quote, don't even know why I came. This statement from a 41-year-old Moroccan who invaded Ceuta. I agree with CC that this was not a normal event. Someone was directing them.
And we're about to get into that in Alberta and the world. First, we're going to go to Alberta and Canada, but there is a ton of information coming about Spain.
Blue Sky Gladu says, Keith would win in a landslide. If he wants us to win, he might be our only chance.
Okay, let's get into Alberta's Canada if we can.
I'm angry. I've had enough of these people.
And we'll keep reading your comments right after this segment, but let's start with retardation. CTV News says, quote, the dawn of dung. Portrait of Donald Trump painted with horse manure sold at Canadian art show. It would be great if he bought it himself.
And you're wondering why you're having a tough time getting a deal with the United States and the president right now. It's one thing to have the painting, free speech as you would have it, but this is all over the press right now, and they're all talking about it, and they're not talking bad about it at all. No, it's all good things. They love shit like this.
And of course, it's from a Vancouver Island artist. I mean, he's not bad at painting, I wouldn't say. But again, I mean, it would be really funny if Donald Trump bought it himself. But again, it's the propaganda and the cognitive dissonance of the majority of Canadians living without really realizing why they're against certain things that would actually be to their benefit, and yet they're to their detriment that just support the current politicians.
They've completely bought into this crazy elbows up campaign, and they're trading away their future for just to feel good emotionally inside, like they're fighting back against the orange man. This is absolutely ridiculous.
But next, Andrew Lawton says this is absolutely egregious. The Liberal government has issued a directive barring military chaplains from doing prayers at military ceremonies. Instead, they're permitted only to do non-religious spiritual reflection that cannot mention God.
This is craziness. Like, the federal government needs to catch a clue here. Why do they even have chaplains if this is the case?
And what's worse is that, I mean, at the rate Canada is going in with the aligning that they're wanting to do with Europe, and maybe even becoming part of the European Union, maybe soon the few Canadians that are still within the military might be actually needing some sort of prayer and help, and yet now they can't even mention God. to continue.
And I mean, there is a war on Christianity across all of Canada right now.
Bill C9.
And the way you have to, in order to maintain your nonprofit status as well, you actually have to be in favor of abortion, which is directly against fundamental principles of Christianity. Yet the federal government wants to take away your nonprofit status if you don't see things the way they want you to.
Mm-hmm. And next, Wealth Moose says, Mark Carney saying, quote, Canada has some of the cheapest gas in the world. However, that is not true, obviously. A reality check, USA is at 95 cents per liter in equivalent. Canada is between 160 and 180 per liter. Saudi Arabia is at 30 cents. Russia is at 50 cents. And Mexico is at 95 cents per liter. We're not even close.
Well, and if you notice something there, Mexico's at 95 cents. The United States is at 95 cents. Canada could be at 95 cents because they're all on the same grid infrastructure for their oil there.
Well, let's watch him say it.
That helps deliver affordability. We have some of the cheapest gas in the world in Canada. It can be efficient, delivers affordability, but that helps deliver affordability.
And they need to keep towing this line. And sadly and unfortunately, he probably knows and realizes that most of Canadians won't actually look into it. They just believe it because it's coming from the Prime Minister and it's coming from mainstream sources. So they won't even look into it because they've been trained not to think for themselves.
Well, and a lot of the oil that comes out of the oil sands is more expensive oil as to be refined. It goes down to Texas. But what Mexico has with the United States is a lot of pipelines running into Mexico, and they buy their energy at the same price the United States has their energy, which is 95 cents. There's no reason Canada couldn't have that same interplay with their relationship to get extremely cheap energy, which would in turn not only benefit the economy, manufacturing, but benefit the citizens themselves.
But it's way more fun to have elbows up. So they'll continue down that path. And speaking of that path, Antonio Tweet says, how does a country become a communist country, totalitarian? Canadians, listen up.
Yeah, and this was a fantastic little take. And in the next section is Alberta and the world. And we're going to go into what's happening in Spain, which has a lot of parallels to other places in the world. But the West is turning towards communism right now. In the United States, it's with the DSA. They're looking at 2028 in the midterms. Mark Carney is a full-on communist in Canada. He's trying to nationalize natural resources as well as other manufacturing sectors by giving loans out. And then I think he's going to give continuous loans out in exchange for percentages of the companies.
I know it doesn't apply to Albertans, but to everybody else, Canadians, if you don't and haven't heeded these warnings, then you can only blame yourselves and have to live with the consequences of your retardation.
So I asked the ChatGPT, how does a country become a totalitarian country and a communist country? Canadians, you need to listen up. So first thing is create or amplify crisis. So what kind of crises have we had? We've had the COVID, we've had the cost of living crisis, we had the housing crisis, we have the immigration crisis. So I would say, yeah, there's been some crises in Canada. Divide population. Well, we've had mass immigration coming in. We have men and women. We have about 50% divorce rate. We have the rainbow people. And then we have the natives. So we have the Sikhs, the Muslims. We got a lot of division here. We're all over the place. Expanding government power. Well, what is that? Social programs, government housing. So we've expanded the homeless population by double by spending $5 billion. 20% or 25% of the population works for the government. Limit speech. I have a whole bunch of bills here. So we got Bill C9, which is hate speech. We have Bill C22, which is surveillance. We have the online streaming, so they get to choose what you see online. And we have the Harms Act, Bill 63. So all this, if you say things that they don't like, you're going to be going to jail. State-owned media. So this year they spent the most on government state media. Make people dependent on the government. Well, 80% of the population receives government checks. They're talking about universal income, and there's a cost of living crisis, so it's getting harder and harder for people to make money, and they're falling behind on their mortgage. Real estate just dropped 30% in Toronto. It's not looking good. And then take the guns away. I don't know about you, but this looks a lot like Canada. Just leave a comment if you think this is Canada.
And you can leave it there. And this is just what's on the surface, which people can see right now. All the mechanisms are being built to bring real communism in. This is nationalization of a lot of different sectors, whether it's manufacturing or primarily natural resource sector.
Mm-hmm. And Max from Freedom Calendar, if you don't follow Freedom Calendar, please go follow Max. But says, Thank you so much for the 256. Very random numbers. He always sends super chat saying the elbows up mind virus is a hell of a drug or substance. Yes, and I mean, we know Canadians in Canada love those, and they don't want to do anything about that crisis either. Just a he said. But thank you so much, Max. And again, go follow Max. He's doing the work essentially of a historian, compiling everything that's going on with Alberta independence, all the events, recording them for people that can't be there live, and to actually continue to be engaged and helping everybody become more engaged as well with what's going on and the conversations. So thank you, Max.
Let's go into comments and then we'll go into Alberta and the world there.
Yvette DeVoe says, yes, I'm so ready to have grandchildren, not in the cards apparently. Oh no. Convince your child. Convince your child to give you a grandchild. And Yazinski says, it is so sad that the younger generations don't feel they can have families. I grew up as the oldest of 7 kids.
Yeah, and I would say adoption's an option, but in a place like Canada, a lot of people are choosing not to have kids because they can't afford it. And this is a big issue in Canada.
And I mean, we could get into the whole microplastics and things that are in the water and things that are impeding women and men from being able to have kids. But that's number one. Not being able to, or feeling like you're not able to afford it or have the conditions necessary.
Well, even they don't feel like they can afford it, because even if they can afford it, they're going to be out freaking work all day, and they're not even going to be raising their own kids at that point. The state's going to be raising it for them, just like the government wants.
Scotty says, leadership swap, talk gets Nenshi hot and bothered. And Gustav Chan says, my current member of parliament is PP, so disappointed. And you have all the right to be. Scotty says, I hear socialists and sour grapes. Smith has been good for Alberta. Nobody seems to want to ask what Carney has done to force her shift, fight socialism.
Yeah, absolutely.
But again, why is she allowing Carney to force her into anything?
Well, they're telling her straight up, if she wants the position in Ottawa, these are the positions she needs to have. And I believe she's moderating her positions. And she's trying to sell those positions so the federal government can get a preview of who she's going to be as an opposition leader. They want to make sure they have somebody that's going to be a good uniparty follower, but appear to have a different stance.
Oh, hold on. Max from Premium Calendar once again says 256 equals 2 to the power of 8.
I'm not good at math.
Me either. And I know that's explaining the previous super chat. Thank you so much. But yeah, I'm not good at math either. You're bad. What's funny is he's better at math than me. That's saying something. Hold on. Where were we?
Thank you, though. We really appreciate it.
Yes, thank you so much, Max. Sorry. Ghost of a Chance says, the jibby jab ended and maimed millions. Yes. And Norma asks, wonder if Nenshi watched Fauci's trial. What's craziest is that some Democrats are still on the side of Fauci and trying to defend him.
Well, and I just want to explain, I said that we're going to start focusing on American politics one day a week, but we see Trump's strategy now. He's bringing up all the things so people can remember what you're going to get with the Democrat. You're not going to get freedoms when it comes to bodily autonomy. Your free speech is going to go away, and a lot of other things. There was something else that recently happened as well. But he's trying to show the general public, and all of these issues help Alberta independence. We should be really shining a light on these exact same issues at the exact same time. They're going to invest billions into this. Oh, communism is another thing. He's exposing the communist DSA in mass. Canada already has that implemented into their government. We should be seeing what he's doing, and we should be implementing similar strategies within Alberta against Carney and against the federal government.
Well, and also directly, maybe even also indirectly helping the rest of Latin America get rid of communism itself as well. I mean, we saw the wave of right-wing candidates come in right after USAID was cut. And again,
and mass immigration as well. Yes. I mean, he's completely stopped mass immigration. He was doing that when nobody else would do it, and he got nothing but shit for it. It's working. And Alberta wants to do the same thing. Canada will never do that as a country.
The Vespa says, if Conservatives are a hockey team, they don't have any depth. They have the stars, PP, Scheer, etc., but lots of role players that can't compete. Dan Lloyd would be the perfect opponent.
Yeah.
Goes of a Chance says, if there was Canadian unity, the interprovincial trade barriers would be eliminated yesterday. It's a farce, people. And again, who was it that helped kind of bring down some of those trade barriers, the interprovincial ones? Trump with his whole alcohol thing. Finally, everybody realized that it might be a good idea to be able to trade faster and easier interprovincially.
Okay, let's go into this just for a moment. I hate when people bring up this talking point of interprovincial trade and like Trump brought it to Canada. Now they're going to have it. No, they're not. They're putting the federal government at the hub of the spoke. In order to get interprovincial trade, there's a ton more regulation and power put into the federal government's hands. They're the ones that negotiate between the players now. This is the federalization of Canada through interprovincial trade. No, this is bringing communism to Canada and putting the federal government at the head of it.
Sorry. Ms. Alto says, in short, the stay argument is vibes and feelings. The independence argument is freaking look around, man.
And
look at where you're living.
Like, I mean, how stupid do you have to be to not realize Canada's falling off a cliff? And what's the worst that's going to happen? We're going to go for independence. We most likely going to be successful, especially with our economy, and it's well researched. But even if we fail, we have multiple safety nets. It's not like the United States or Canada is going to say no to Alberta if we ask to be part of them at some point. If we failed in the worst possible way and fell flat on our face, we have multiple safety nets. If we don't take the risk, we're freaking retards at this point.
Goes of Chan says, complete and total free trade with the Americans. I want me some Wisconsin cheese for the first time in my life.
Absolutely. And Trump offered zero trade with Canada. And he knew if he offered that, Canada would turn it down because they wanted to protect their monopolies.
Mm-hmm. Have you ever tried Wisconsin cheese?
No.
The story of government cheese is always very funny to me in the U.S.
But I like the cheese hats they wear at the Green Bay Packers games.
Ms. Altoad says, at least horse manure, again, the painting from Donald Trump, makes things grow. The BS coming from Carney makes them die.
Yeah.
Exactly. Good analogy. Goes of a Chance says, I don't have that opportunity living in a communist country. My cheese opportunities are restricted. And soon you will be having to form a line to get cheese from the Canadian government. Hold on, where are we? Now everybody's talking about cheese. Ms. Altoad says, the whole recipe for communist totalitarianism is there. The cake just needs a little bit more time to bake. It's already in the oven.
Yeah.
Believe that.
He's building all the mechanisms right now. Because he has that majority government, he can push everything through right now as well. He wants to build all the mechanisms before he starts activating them and setting the precedents. He's hoping people don't wake up.
And Yazinski says, I'm counting on Trump to clean the house.
Yeah. Well, we need him to win the midterms, and we need a J.D. Vance in 2028. They need to follow this administration up with another administration that is going to really follow through with the framework that's been set, because the globalists may be able to wait Donald Trump out on this one, but they won't be able to wait out a following administration.
And Holden says, I never thought I would I never thought that I would get to a place where I would just say so many Canadians are just not very bright.
Yeah, it's crazy.
That's years of the liberal education that was
and mass immigration. It may not even be that they're so bright, but English is their second language as well.
And that too. Speaking of all of that, let's go to Alberta and the World, which is basically right now just a warning straight to the jugular to Canada and all the rest of the European countries. But let's go see what's happening in Spain and elsewhere. Pressed the wrong button, but it's Alberta and the World. Apologies.
Okay, and I will kind of preference this. There is a ton of news coming out from Spain. I could have ran the whole show just on Spain alone. I tried to put the stories in order to build a narrative, and we're going to start with a story that just gives the broad outlook in case anybody doesn't know what's happening in Spain right now. And it all has to do with mass immigration. Mass immigration is a big issue within Alberta as well. We've seen Danielle Smith's statements earlier in the show.
I would even say just stop calling it mass immigration, just call it mass invasion, because that is what it actually is. Yeah. And that is the actual purposes of all of what we're seeing. We have been seeing for years now. ABC News says, quote, at least 18 migrants passed away trying to reach the Spanish territory of Ceuta after thousands of people breached the frontier with Morocco and poured into the tiny Spanish territory.
And again, it does not have to be this way. Trump has given the example of another way to do things.
This morning, the deadly chaos as a new migrant crisis unfolds in Europe. Thousands of people from Africa, many of them swimming for hours, have poured into a small territory.
It's not swimming for. Sorry, it's ABC News, but I've been looking into this. They swam for a tiny, the length of a pool, essentially, is how far they have to swim, because it's connected, number one, on land, it's connected, but also it's connected by just a little tiny enclave of rocks, essentially, that they have to just swim around.
Well,
So
I have maps.
not
I have maps to go into the story later on, so everybody can get a good visualization of what's happening, because this is not in mainland Spain as well.
Yes.
Of Spain, some wearing wetsuits, using inner tubes and flippers. Others, including children, climbed over barbed wire border fences. Spain now mobilizing its military. Officials confirm.
And they are trying really hard. There was no children. That was a teenager or a young adult right there, but they're trying to say children, and that's the way they want to try to frame this thing.
They're calling a lot of them minors as well.
Well as when I was looking into this, a year ago, Pedro Sanchez is the president of Spain. They were saying Spain is the pinnacle of progressive liberal immigration policies. We need more of this. And now we're seeing what's happening with those progressive liberal immigration policies. He gave everybody the okay and rewarded them with citizenship, so now they're all coming.
This is what you get.
Nearly 20 people have died. The migrants poured into Ceuta, a Spanish territory situated on Morocco's northern coast, making it a gateway to the European Union. Authorities struggling to control the massive crowds, mostly young men. Many running through the streets. One migrant describes the conditions he says drove him to leave Morocco.
We don't have a good medicine, and we don't have a good teachers, and it's a bad life.
The flood of migrants comes just weeks after Spain's Supreme Court ruled migrants who reach Ceuta by sea cannot immediately be returned to their home countries without due process. The White House responding saying, President Trump has long warned Europe what would happen if they continue to implement far-left globalist policies, including enabling mass migration. Italy's prime minister also reacting, threatening to suspend an agreement with Spain that allows travel between most European countries without routine border controls. Spain says it's mobilizing all necessary resources to handle the situation.
And a lot of people don't know the history of Spain and Morocco, and they did something very similar in 1975 and were able to obtain about the landmass of Colorado. Spain just gave it over to the Moroccans because the Moroccans had 350,000 people try to illegally immigrate into the country. And then eventually...
It's called the Green March.
Eventually they agreed to bring the people back if they surrendered the landmass the size of Colorado. There's already a history of this. This is modern warfare. This is invasion through immigration. The Chinese also have a similar military strategy. It was recently revealed they were going to use it against Russia. They were going to send 1 million migrants over the border on a daily basis until they overflowed the country. And then they would have news cameras with those people so they couldn't shoot them. And it would absolutely devastate and overwhelm the country. Russia was a little bit upset about that. They're still on good terms. But the fact that these are drawn out in military plans for a lot of these countries.
And again, by using or following the liberal lie that it's all about, it's about refugees, it's an asylum crisis, they're all migrants, they're looking for a better... Most of them didn't look like what you and I would picture when we think of refugee or somebody that is in dire need of either medical attention or food or whatever. They're not doing so bad in Morocco. Morocco is not the third world country that you're probably imagining within Africa.
I think we're going to have to power through it because I have like 10 stories in this section about this story. You'll be able to talk through it. It's literally, we could have done the whole show on this. Yes. I've never had 10 stories in a section.
The Globe and Mail says Spain, Morocco halt deadly rush of migrants after 49,000 cross in a day, and at least now they increased the number to 19 passing away.
Yeah, so the numbers have increased. Can you go back to that? The numbers have increased even since this story has come out. I went through a recent update. It's up to 60,000 now. So,
and again, it was not just in Ceuta, but also in Melilla. It was 2 different cities, autonomous cities, that were essentially taken over with the same amounts of numbers, between 20 to 40,000, now 60,000 in each.
Well, and you have to realize Canada is taking in over 2 million refugees a year now, and that's not being talked about. It's quietly tucked away. Everybody thinks Mark Carney is reducing immigration numbers. He's massively increasing refugee numbers, and he's getting a lot of his refugees from the EU. Recently, we had a lot of Ukrainian refugees come over, but there's no reason to say they won't make secret deals to accept more refugees from Morocco here.
And again, it's not the same refugee you usually think of when you think of war-torn, hunger-stricken refugees. No, they're
These are
economic
yeah.
invaders. Lord Bibo says, quote, Finland, Sweden, Denmark, and Austria joined Italy in calling for Spain's suspension in the Schengen area until Madrid secures its external borders and reverses the policy that prevents the immediate deportation of illegal migrants. Again, if they come by sea, apparently, they have to go through the whole process and they can't just be deported immediately.
Yeah, and this isn't going to happen. They all want to stand up because they know their citizens never got a vote on this. Their citizens didn't want it. And on the 12th of last month, all these countries signed away their sovereignty when it comes to immigration to the EU. The EU is now in charge of their immigration. They're not even in charge of it. And the EU has built thousands of refugee intake centers around the EU in multiple different countries. They didn't build them not to use them. This is the first wave of many, I think, that's coming.
And there's currently one country in all of that area more towards the east that has done the complete opposite, and that essentially serves as a mirror image as to what Europe could continue to be versus what it has allowed itself to become, and that is Poland, because they don't allow any immigration of any kind, essentially, into their borders. But Basil the Great, and this is why, Basil the Great says Ceuta was a war zone last night. This was day one. Today they've started looting every store in the city. If that doesn't make you support remigration, I don't know what will.
So that ABC report and the mainstream reports were all from yesterday showing the immigrants come in. What happened that very first night, they're looting and rioting all the stores, throwing rocks at police. I mean, this is not... these are not friendly migrants in any way, shape, or form.
They're invaders.
And again, there was 49,000 of them. I believe the population of the city they went to was around 80,000. Almost 60,000 invaders, because that was the updated number. That's almost the population of the city. The police and the military aren't even going to be able to deal with that.
And again, a lot of them were interviewed, the few that could speak either Spanish or English or some modicum of another language. And the three people that they interviewed that become pretty publicized, the three of them said that they were essentially escaping because they were being either looked or already arrested for crimes. Some of them ending someone's life, and some of them within other countries in Europe. Another one had already been deported from Spain and yet was back.
Yeah, we're gonna get into that. I got like 10 stories here. So.
Well, they're all the ones you grabbed are pretty similar. Mario Noful says Moroccan police continue to guide illegal invaders straight toward the Spanish border in Ceuta. What the hell is going on?
And before we watch this one, I'll kind of bring up the talking point that you just had. There were over 2,000 inmates released from prison on the exact same day, and there were mass amounts of trucks, construction trucks, and buses that transported these people to the border. This was organized. Cops were just waving them by.
They get censored for that kind of music. They all seem pretty cheerful and happy. And again, while we watch this, I think I can give the update. Morocco and Algeria, which is a country essentially next to Morocco, have been fighting for centuries. It's a decades-old qualm that they have over territorial disputes, etc. Funnily enough, on Wednesday this week, a picture came out of Pedro Sanchez from Spain, the president, essentially going to do a bunch of trade talks and negotiations, including migration negotiations with Algeria. And the Morocco invasion happened a day after, and Morocco had been warning about something happening if Spain didn't continue to uphold its less friendly talks with Algeria. So it also could be due to that. But next...
Well, and let's remember one other thing here. We went in depth on this channel. So did Tucker Carlson. So did a lot of people. They were actually traveling with the migrants from South America all the way up. And this was billions of dollars of funding from the United Nations and NGOs that set up a network of water dispensaries, hotels, clothing checkpoints all throughout Mexico, all throughout South America to get all these migrants to the border. There seems to be something similar that was happening there as well. And I'm expecting more of this. We need leaders that are going to stand up and say no.
And again, Abiy Yemini says the UAE tried to warn Europe.
Yeah, their leaders were
Europe's been warned
warned.
multiple
Their
times.
leaders already warned them.
And let me say this in English so you can understand what I'm saying.
I have translation.
No, I know you have translation, but I just want to make sure you get it right. There will come a day that we will see far more radical extremists and terrorists coming out of Europe because of the lack of decision-making, trying to be politically correct, or assuming that they know the Middle East and they know Islam and they know the others far better than we do. And I'm sorry, but that's pure ignorance.
And what you're seeing in Europe as well, and this has been something we've covered off and on for a long time, but a lot of radicalists come out of Europe. Specifically, Luton is the hotbed within the European Union. You might recognize that name because Andrew Tate came from Europe, or from Luton, the UK, as well as Tommy Robinson came from Luton as well. There's been more terrorist leaders coming out of Luton than anywhere else within the EU. And what a lot of terrorists in the EU do, they're born in the EU, indoctrinated through a lot of these mosques. They go out and fight wars and get training in the Middle East, and then they come back completely radicalized and violent, and then they organize groups in the streets.
I mean, we just saw that German man who ran over the Pride Parade because, how dare they think that Islam doesn't really like the LGBTQ community. He was a German man, a son of invaders, I will call them, who eventually did this. Speaking of Tommy Robinson, says only months after Dirty Sanchez tried deflecting his failures onto Elon Musk for calling him out, his chickens come home to roost in Ceuta and Melilla. Sanchez must go. And unfortunately, it could also be because, yes, Sanchez must go.
Okay,
Sanchez must go. Hold on. I will say Sanchez is being investigated for other things within Spain and had been being investigated for a while now. So could this also be helpful for him to stop the media in Spain talking about his actual maybe imprisonment and start talking about this instead?
And I put these next couple clips in here for people that probably aren't aware of the story. A lot of people don't pay attention to geopolitics. They're not going to know who Pedro Sanchez is. That's why I put this clip in here. So people are going to know some of his past statements, and he is a far leftist, and he welcomes mass immigration. He is the most left president within the EU, and his mass immigration policies represent that.
He's a communist.
Just last week, the owner of X, a migrant himself, used his personal account to amplify disinformation about the sovereign decision by my government, the regularization of 500,000 migrants that live, work, and contribute to the success of our country. The same platform that has allowed its AI grok to generate illegal sexual content. Meanwhile, Instagram has been accused of spying on millions of Android users around the world. Facebook has been used to deploy hundreds of misinformation and foreign interference campaigns during national and regional elections. Just last week...
this is important because his government thought there were approximately 500 illegal migrants in the country. He gave them all citizenship in order to get a new voting block. What they had was 1 million applicants. There was many more illegal immigrants in the country than even they thought. The question is, did he stop? Did he stop at 500,000, or did he give the full 1 million the citizenship, as well as we see what it's leading to now? Wave after wave after wave. They know they're welcome there.
Because they are, in a way, essentially. Lord Bibo says, quote, Spain's Prime Minister Pedro Sanchez calls yesterday's incursion into Ceuta a violation of Spain's territorial integrity, saying Ceuta is a Spanish city, and what happened yesterday deserves all our reproach, all our condemnation at the most vigorous level of rejection, and yet he didn't do anything, and yet he didn't, he sent the military, he sent like a tank with 4 people in it that just watched the migrants as they both came in, but also a few of them in Ceuta, funnily enough, early in the morning, realized that Ceuta on Fridays is essentially completely closed, and there's just a very few places to get food, for example. So a lot of the invaders started leaving by themselves through the front door from which they came back to their home country, saying, well, there's nowhere to sleep, well, there's nothing to eat. After they looted, after they tried to break in, or actually did break into people's homes, then they decided, well, if I can't find anything to eat and if I can't find anywhere to sleep because everything's closed, and yet And also, our presence is making people close the businesses that were open. Well, we're just going to go back home and maybe try another day. But again, it was pretty coordinated. And the fact that they left means that they maybe didn't get what they knew, or they got what they wanted, or they didn't get enough of what they were looking for.
Yeah, it's important to understand how leftist and communist governments are going to do this. Yeah, he's going to say all these things. Oh, we have to reject this. Yeah, he's giving all these people legal status within the country. He just gave 500,000. He's probably going to give another 500,000 because over 1 million people applied. And that's why there's wave after wave. He's not actually taking action to stop it. He's giving lip service so the people don't revolt within the country. But he actually wants this. His policies reflect that he wants this. He's working hand in hand with the EU to drive mass immigration into the EU because Spain is the corridor to Africa for the EU.
And there's already been protests planned by the citizens that are incredibly upset with this, but we'll see what kind of repression he takes against that, and then see the response that he took against the invaders.
And let's go to the last...
No?
What?
Do you want me to play it?
No, it's in Spanish. Let's go into the last story here, and it's with Donald Trump, just to show an opposite approach here.
The contrast. Benny Johnson says, quote, Trump is building a double wall at our southern border while Spain is being conquered by third world invaders. We are locking down our border. All we needed was a new president.
Yeah, and a lot of people are complaining, well, he's not getting rid of anybody. Yes, he is. His policies are working. Now, ICE isn't as successful as he would like to be, but his remigration policy is, meaning immigrants can go to any airport in the United States, request a plane ticket home, and they'll receive $2,500 cash as well as the plane ticket to their home country or any country that will take them. Canada happens to be one of the countries that will take them.
So,
on top of that, immigration or illegal immigration for the year or since Donald Trump has been in office is actually at a net negative now for the first time in decades for the United States.
And then there's a double wall.
And yeah, now he's building a double wall on certain sectors to make it even harder to get through. And it allows them to build very well paved roads and stuff as well, so they can really monitor everything that's going on there. On my X, I had posted they need to build a triple wall on the Canadian border pretty soon.
They're coming. They're already there. And again, in Canada specifically, has been way more legally. They've been able to come in way in an easier way legally, but also it's a slower drip feed that has been fed of invaders into Canada to the point where people don't really realize it and now continuously defended, similar to what happened in Europe.
It's not a slower drip feed now, and I keep saying these statistics, and I know other conservative commentators. I mean, I watch them all day. They're not. And it's not you. It's not just you. It's every conservative commentator I watch. They're not aware of the number of refugees, over 2 million. A lot of those refugees, they're not coming on planes. What they're coming on is through deals Mark Carney is making with the EU to take refugees in. It's not what you just said, so I'm not trying to argue with you. It's other commentators that I've seen. A lot of people just aren't aware of how many refugees are coming into Canada right now.
Yes, but what I mean is that people, the citizens aren't realizing what's actually happening. That's what I mean.
Yeah.
And because it was drip fed for so long, and it's all the new Canadians.
It's not being drip fed. It wasn't.
Yes.
It wasn't. It was over 1 million every year, and now it's up to 2 million.
I know, in the past 5 years, not in the past decade, when people didn't realize it. People thought it was all just students and the immigrants that want to build a new life, and then they hit the warp speed button on it around the COVID times.
Okay.
That's when those numbers started to increase. I know because I looked into it.
So did I.
Okay.
Okay.
He listened. So
Let's go over to RUMBLE.
We have comments.
Oh, okay.
Or do you want to just leave
Are you getting
everybody?
upset at spaghetti there, Nat?
And Yazinski says, reminds me of the candy called Sweethearts, LOL. And Yazinski also says, expecting something amazing, and once it dissolved, pop, the real truth comes out. About what? Immigration? Sean, or Daniel Smith. Sean, hello, Sean, says, why does Spain in the 21st century have an enclave in North Africa? This was hubris to have it. In a way, but at the same time, since after the 700s, in the 700s, okay,
it's actually to control the Strait of Gibraltar. Yes. There's 3 countries that own that general area. Morocco owns the one side along with Spain. Spain owns the other side. And actually the UK has a big portion of it as well.
I was going to give a history lesson, but apparently there's no time. Sean says Morocco was triggered by Spain over something, and again, likely Western Sahara.
I think there's a larger plan here, and they're going to need to flood the EU with immigrants. I think the EU has set this up behind the scenes. They have massive amounts of what they call mega intake centers for refugees set up all over around the EU that aren't in use right now. So there's a reason they built them. And the only way I see to get them in is going to be primarily Spain, because the Eastern European countries are a little bit more hard-nosed on immigration.
Sean asks, does anyone wear ties in Spain? Jeez. I mean, not the socialists, but also it's about 43 degrees centigrade right now there. I don't know what that is in Fahrenheit. Don't even ask me, Sean. Sean says, I repeat, it's the 21st century. Again, they think it gives them a geopolitical advantage to have the Strait of Gibraltar. Do they need to have people living there and not just maybe an armament that could help control that? Who knows? Ghost of a Chance says, if Alberta leaves Canada, dies. Time to open the Constitution, Laurentians. We're tired of being a colony.
Yeah, absolutely.
Hold on. Tim Burns, hello. Thank you for being here. Says, before that SOS was elected, all we had to do was crack down on the border, deal with the Fenty crisis, and get rid of supply management. We could have done real free trade, but no. And then he got elected. Selected, I will say. John B says, Trump didn't like the Moroccans doing this. Well, of course not. And Tim Burns very aptly
Well, I don't know if he didn't like it, because I think
it helps him in his...
It really reflects on his policies in the United States and how they're working and how he's actually doing what the citizens want. I think it was a great thing for Alberta independence as well as Donald Trump for this incident to not only happen, but happen against the most far left-wing communist ideology government within the EU, Pedro Sanchez.
Tim Burns says, coming to a small town near you. And that's the saddest part, that most people in those small towns clap at the invaders and say, yes, let's help them all. Oh, of course, they're starving, they're fleeing war-torn countries. No, they're not. Morocco is not a war-torn country. And neither are many of the ones they're coming from. Ghost of a Chance says, there are 7 transnational criminal organizations operating in Canada, 8 if you're taking into consideration the Liberal Party of Canada.
Yeah.
Tim Burns says, you mean commie? Yeah, commie. Tim Burns also says, Morocco has a higher GDP than Canada. Imagine that. Exactly. And yet, because people don't know enough about the world, they just take what they're told at face value. Oh, these are refugees. Oh, these are asylum seekers. Oh, we have to help them. Their country is doing better than other countries that are supposedly first world countries.
Yeah, and Mark Carney is also fudging a lot of the numbers now. He's no longer using Bank of Canada numbers a lot, which is the traditional numbers you use. He's getting his buddies within a lot of these United Nations organizations and things like that to make projections, put out studies, and then he's using those numbers. Mm-hmm. But if you use the traditional numbers, Canada is in the second worst position, tied with Japan right now, and Japan is going through a financial collapse.
Mm-hmm. Tim Burns says, meanwhile, Canadians are strung out on substances in the streets. Exactly, and yet we call that, or they like to still think that they're a first world country. Again, I'm from Mexico, and I always say it, not always, but most of the time I feel way safer here in Mexico than I did in Canada in the last few years we lived there. I wouldn't walk by myself at night there. I do so here. Don't come get me, though. And lastly, you're very right, Ghost of a Chance. Ghost of a Chance says, your patience is paramount, Nat. LOL. I have that patience of a saint because I live with this man. You're welcome.
Okay, let's go over to RUMBL.
We have spicier stories that we cannot talk about here on YouTube. Before we leave, though, please don't forget to subscribe. Again, it really does help us out. Have a great rest of your weekend. But again, the show's not over. We're going over to RUMBLE. You can find... it's the same channel name, sorry.
Let's get ready to rumble!